Hi everyone, I'm Salim Ismail. I'm recording this for Wabona and the iConnect 2024 conference. I wish I could be there in person, but I've been traveling a lot and I'm sure you'll have a great event today. I wanted to run through a few thoughts on how I think about moonshots for Africa. So let me just share my screen and talk you through where I think goes and the unbelievable opportunity that exists for Africa going forward. I'm actually from India originally, and I'm Canadian, and I've spent 20 years in the US, and I was the head of innovation at Yahoo, and I was the founding CEO of an organization called Singularity University before I wrote this book on how do you scale an organization as fast as you can scale technology. And it all starts here with Ray Kurzweil identifying exponential trends and showing that Moore's law has been happening for more than 100 years, and we've been doubling computational price performance since the 1890s. And the question that Ray asked when he's put this graph together is, why is this curve so smooth and so predictable in wars and recessions and ups and downs in the industry? And it turns out that when you have an information-based environment, any technology creates a doubling pattern and then just keeps doubling. And this was cognitively hard to get our heads around. It led Peter Diamandis to write this book called Of Abundance, charting out that if we could harness this acceleration, that we could soon have an abundance of healthcare, education, clean water, energy in about a decade. And so the framing of this is that we have exponential technologies that can deliver us abundance. Peter is most famous for creating the X Prize Foundation, where I'm on the board as of a few years ago. We give large public prizes wherever there are market failures. And I'm going to talk through a couple of the prizes that we do. One of them is a carbon extraction prize. It's a $100 million prize. And we have almost several hundred teams in the semifinals where they have workable solutions. And now we need to test whether they can scale to a global level. And so having that many teams survive through this level gives us enormous optimism for something like climate change. This is the updated view of that curve of Moore's law. You can see we're tracking exactly at pace. The challenge when you have exponential growth, it is very hard to see it. All of our brains and education and intuition are linear. And an exponential curve looks linear for a very long time before it takes off. Okay? So there are two things about technology that I think are utterly magical today that I want to highlight. The first is that we have a dozen technologies on this doubling pattern. Okay? And this is completely unique in human history. Throughout history, maybe at any point, maybe one technology is accelerating, maybe another technology is accelerating. We've never had this many all accelerate at the same time. Okay? So for example, drones are doubling every 9 months in their price performance. In neuroscience, the resolution at which we can image the brain is doubling every year. Solar energy is doubling every 22 months and has been for 40 years. Okay, and so amazing things are happening across the board in all of these. The latest, of course, is AI, which is doubling right now every 3 months in its capability and seems to be moving as maybe the fastest moving technology we've ever seen. Now, it turns out when you digitize, we're digitizing the world very rapidly, and that leads to a lot of disruption. Okay. Now you can look at disruption in two ways. You can look at it as a threat, or you can look at it as an opportunity. And if you're an entrepreneur, this is the biggest opportunity in the history of mankind because we have a dozen technologies all on this accelerating pattern. The best metaphor we have found to describe this exponential trends is photography. 20 years ago, we had film photography, and you had a scarcity model, and you could only carry so much film. And we had a whole bunch of business models crop up around that scarcity, like selling cameras, teaching courses on photography, and so on. Then you move to digital photography, and first the marginal cost goes to zero. As a result of that, we take 1 billion times more photographs. And then you change the problem space, because the problem we have in digital photography today is we all have copies of our photographs on 6 different online services, and you cannot find anything. Right? So you've gone from a sourcing problem to a filtering problem. We see this transition happening in industry after industry and product area after product area as we digitize the world very rapidly. Because technology fundamentally takes something that's scarce and it makes it abundant. right? 30 years ago, nobody had a smartphone, and now everybody has a smartphone. And so we have an abundance of information and apps and capabilities, right? But the big story today, of course, is AI. And the reason we use AI and we need it is we've not had an upgrade in our brains in about 50,000 years. If your phone was 50,000 years old, you would be very unhappy with it. We have lots of old wiring and a lot of biases and cognitive heuristics that are limiting our brain in different ways. Saliency bias, sunk cost bias, overconfidence bias, pattern bias, etc. And the reason we need AI is we have a tsunami of data hitting us. If you're a cancer doctor, it turns out there are 2,000 cancer research papers published every day. So you actually need AI to help read through those for you and tell you which of those applies to your patients, right? Of course, we have infrastructure issues that allow us to think about how do we do things in a different way. It would take $1 trillion to lay roads across Africa. And why would you do that when you can leapfrog straight to something like drones and totally change the game? Because if you layer a solution on drones, whether it's delivering medicine or urgent care, soon we'll have passenger drones. Maybe we don't need to lay down roads everywhere and save that $1 trillion of infrastructure and create air infrastructure. So I think there's an unbelievable opportunity for Africa to leapfrog the rest of the world and put in infrastructure in a digital world as opposed to a physical world. Okay, I don't have time to go through all of these, but I did want to give you a little sense of what's happening to give you a basis around this. Importantly, the way we like to frame this is that we have 20 Gutenberg moments hitting us at the same time. You know, in the 15th century, the printing press completely changed the world. And we call that a Gutenberg moment because of the fundamental transformation it created in society. Well, AI fundamentally changes the world. Blockchain fundamentally changed the world. Solar energy fundamentally changed the world. And as far as we can see, we have about 20 of these Gutenberg moments hitting us all at the same time. This provides unlimited opportunity if you're an entrepreneur. And think of the moonshots that will come from every one of these major technological innovations, right? The big challenge is that this causes enormous stress to all of our institutions. Legal systems, healthcare systems, education is pretty much broken. Journalism is broken. Democracy is breaking. So the enormous challenge we have is what is the future of our institutions in a world that's digital and moving so quickly? This is E.O. Wilson, a very famous biologist, and I think he put it best. He said the problem with humanity is our emotions are Paleolithic, our institutions are medieval, and our technology is godlike. Right? Pretty much all the problems in the world comes from the gaps in those three layers. And as leaders, we will spend the next 20 years trying to bridge those gaps, right? This is the enormous issue. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that there were two things about technology that were magical. First, we have a dozen technologies accelerating. But the second is even more exciting for today. So throughout history, it has always been true that advanced technologies cost a lot. Okay? Only a government or a big corporate lab could do R&D, launch new products and services. Today, for the first time in human history, advanced technologies are cheap. Solar energy is cheap, sensors are cheap, blockchains are open source and free, the tools we use to navigate AI are mostly free. The cost of training an LLM has dropped 98% in the last 5 years. Okay, this is incredible capability. So for the first time in history, advanced technologies are cheap, and that gives you unbelievable access for anybody in the world. And I'll give you an example of this. So when we were launching space shuttles, it was about $600 million per space shuttle launch. Okay, SpaceX with the repeatable rocket technology dropped that by 10x. It dropped that down to 60 million. And here is Relativity Space. They are 3D printing the rocket engines, and they will be able to do it for $6 million launch. Okay, and that's amazingly affordable for many governments around the world. And think of this, the idea that, we've had a 100x drop in this domain in costs in a 20-year period. And let's note that this is not some Silicon Valley digital media gaming play. This is physical stuff lifting out of the Earth's gravity well, lifting heavy objects up. So this is real physics, and yet we've seen 100 times drop there. So what amazing opportunity do we have elsewhere? Okay. The problem, of course, is that most people don't see this exponential growth, and this is very important to describe why, and I want you to get this really well. What you see in the black here is the actual growth of solar energy over about a 20-year period, right? Complete hockey stick up and to the right. What you see in the colored lines are the predictions from the top energy experts in the world as to the future of solar. And as you can see here, every time solar goes up vertically, the experts go linear. They can't believe it keeps going up. They keep thinking it has to level off, right? And they never learn. If you made repeated predictions that were horizontal and the reality is vertical, you should lose your job, right? So this is the unbelievable opportunity because most people won't see these exponential growth curves. And that's where you can hang your hat. So watch for these trends when you see the news that says India doubled its solar energy output last year and doubled it again this year. Watch for that trend and you will know that that is actually going to keep going. Okay. And the inexorable, exciting part about that is because of the drop in cost. Any entrepreneur can enter a legacy industry with a beginner's mind and completely disrupt it. So today, every technology and every product area, a domain is becoming digital. The costs are going to zero. Then you get radical new technologies and disrupt the status quo. And whether it's drones or biotech or Bitcoin, by the way, buy Bitcoin if you can, is going through this type of a curve, right? A farmer in Africa today has more information capability at his fingertips than President Bush did 15 years ago. Okay, that's a profound comment that we can go from the most powerful person in the world and equally has access to some of the poorest people in the world in less than a generation, right? That's incredibly exciting. This is the Vega. It's the third fastest car in the world, okay? And this is being engineered and designed and built in Sri Lanka, which is not far from you. And it's an island of fishermen and farmers, and they have no ecosystem or experience or education or investors. Okay, if you can do this there, I think you can do this kind of thing anywhere. And I'm expecting to see things like this come out of Africa and every corner of the world going forward. So if to give you that sense of it, the world is unbelievably moving quickly and presenting incredible opportunities everywhere around the world. I want to give you some sense of how to take advantage of this. And then I want to leave you with some ideas that if I was in your shoes, what would I do? Okay, so this is David Rose who made this comment that big companies won't work in the 21st century. You need small companies that iterate. Notice that the biggest companies in the world today, Apple, Microsoft, etc., all started as small companies and iterated very well. Okay, and so what the book does is looks through and says, how do you scale an organization as fast as you can scale technology? And we have a model, and if you, Wabona and his team can give you more detail on this, on how do you build an exponential organization. We found they all have what we call a massive transformative purpose, and then 5 externalities on the right, like leveraging community, leveraging other people's assets, etc. And 5 internal mechanisms like lean startup thinking, decentralized organization structures, etc. We just launched the 2nd edition of the book a year ago, and this model is proving now to be the model on which organizations are built. And we have unbelievable evidence around that because we can actually build organizations that are growing 10 times better and faster rather than 10% a year. Okay, we end the book with a section on mindsets. If you take your favorite political or technology or social leader, you could argue that it's not their money and it's not their technology, it's really their mindset that really is making a huge difference. And we have a whole series of mindsets here that we think are very important. Again, I won't go through those in the limited time I have. I did want to give you just 2 of these, okay? One is the exponential mindset. So if you think about how Elon Musk builds companies, he looks at a technology that's exponential, be it solar energy doubling or lithium-ion batteries or neural links, neural interfaces, brain computing interfaces doubling. And then he looks out 10 years, where will that technology be in 10 years? And let's build a company to intercept that curve. He just does that over and over again. Okay, so it's critical to have an exponential mindset. And for the purpose of this discussion, you really need also a moonshot mindset. Where is your crazy ideas department? And can you come up with and think about the craziest ideas? Because they're actually much easier to build because nobody's crazy enough to go build those. So it's time, I think, for African entrepreneurs to be really crazy. And from what I've seen coming to Botswana last year, Africans are crazy. So there's enormous, and I want to give you some sense of an example. Sri Lanka borrowed $500 million from the Chinese to expand the port because the city's grown and they need more port. This puts the country massively in debt, etc. And I was sitting down with the Prime Minister. I said, drones are doubling every 9 months. So today a drone can carry about 500 kilos. An average container is about 20,000 kilos. So if you waited 3 doublings for a drone to be able to carry 500, 9 months later 1,000, 9 months later 2,000, 9 months later 4,000, well, at that point, 4 drones can pick up a corner of a container and lift a container off a ship and put it on a truck or a train. You don't need a port, right? Unfortunately, they just signed the loan, so it was too late. But this is the opportunity for completely different ways of thinking in the world today. So let me give you some ideas of what I would do. This is called Wellways. It's a mechanism to detect breast cancer. It's an 8-inch diameter pad about this big, and you can see the dots there that are sensitive temperature sensors. This costs a few dollars to make, and you could cure breast cancer everywhere around the world. So I would set up a factory manufacturing these devices and export it to every country in the region. That would be one idea I would do. 3D printing of houses. This is a Chinese 3D printing system that can print 10 houses in a day. Okay, the Chinese copy technology from lots of people. Why not copy them and build 3D printing of houses? Because now you can do affordable housing using local materials in a very powerful way. Okay, something that we think is incredibly powerful and a huge opportunity is to be able to take domains like education, healthcare, legal systems, software, and put all the, say you take Botswana, take all the education material in Botswana or all the healthcare material, load it up into an LLM, and give every child a tutor, a doctor, a lawyer, and a software developer. And just let them go now and do it for free because it won't cost that much to do. Okay, and now you have the most incredible capabilities in every young child in the country. So those are some ideas I wanted to share with you. Wabona can kind of give you some more detail around us and what we do. I hope you have a wonderful conference, and I really want to stress again that if you think about the US or Europe or Japan, we have to unlearn 50 years of Harvard MBA thinking and leapfrog to new ideas. Right? Whereas in emerging markets, and especially in a land of opportunity like Africa, you can quickly jump forward to the new world. And I think the opportunity is unbelievable, unlimited, low cost. And now it's just a question of your mindset. So have a great day. I hope that was helpful. And we will see you again sometime soon. I hope to come back to Botswana sometime in the very near future. Okay. Bye-bye then. And I hope this